I woke up on a Tuesday, not slowly, the way you wake from normal sleep, all at once with the particular sharpness of a body that has been unconscious for reasons it didn't choose. The ceiling was white. The light was too bright for morning. A machine near my left hand made a sound every few seconds that I found, inexplicably, comforting. My appendix had ruptured on a Saturday. I had driven myself to the emergency room because there was no one to call who wouldn't make the situation more complicated. The surgery had been straightforward, the doctor told me later. The recovery would take time. Kevin arrived on Tuesday afternoon. He stood at the foot of my bed with his hands in his jacket pockets, which was how he stood when he had already decided something and was simply waiting to deliver it. My brother was 4 years older than me. We had grown up in the same house and become entirely different people, in the way that sometimes happens in families, when one child is chosen and the other is not. "Mom wanted me to tell you," he said. "We sold Gran's house." I looked at him. "The offer came in fast," he said. "We didn't want to lose it." I had been in surgery 4 days ago. Eleanor had been gone for 11 days. And my family had found the deed, located a buyer, negotiated a price, and signed the papers in the space between my anesthesia and my waking up. "How much?" I said. He told me. It was less than the house was worth. Significantly less. Kevin had never been good with numbers, which was perhaps why he had spent 15 years borrowing them from other people. "Mom will call you about splitting it," he said. I nodded. I looked at the ceiling. I said nothing else, and after a few minutes of silence, he became uncomfortable and left. The thing about being an estate attorney is that you know exactly what questions to ask. And the thing about being the invisible child in a family is that you learn very early to ask them quietly, in private, when no one is watching. I waited until Kevin's footsteps faded down the corridor. Then I picked up my phone. I had 3 missed calls. 2 were from my mother. One was from a number I didn't recognize, with an area code from the north side of the city. I didn't listen to the voicemails yet. I set the phone face down on the blanket and looked out the window at a rectangle of sky that was the particular pale gray of early October. Eleanor had called me 6 weeks before she died. We had talked for 2 hours, which was not unusual. She had asked me about my work, which she always did with genuine interest, and I had told her about a case involving a family dispute over a property trust. She had listened carefully. At the end of the call, she had said, "Nora, you know I've always trusted you with the things that matter." I had said yes. I had meant it as a simple acknowledgement. Now, lying in a hospital bed, 4 days after emergency surgery, listening to the sound of the machine beside me, I understood she had meant it as something else entirely. I picked up my phone and played the unknown voicemail. "Let me tell you about Eleanor Callahan. She was 79 years old when she died, and she was sharp until the last week, the kind of sharp that doesn't announce itself, that sits quietly in a room and catalogues everything while appearing to do nothing. She had worked as a bookkeeper for 30 years. She understood numbers the way some people understand music, not as a skill but as a language. She had 2 children. My mother, Diane, was the oldest. Robert came 3 years later. And somewhere in the distribution of attention and expectation that happens in families without anyone quite deciding it, Diane had been positioned as the responsible one and Robert as the charming one, and both of them had spent the rest of their lives performing those roles at great cost to everyone around them. I was Diane's younger child. Kevin was older, male, and possessed of a confidence that had never once been tested against reality. I was quieter, more careful, and therefore easier to overlook. Eleanor never overlooked me. She came to my law school graduation when my mother didn't. She sent me a card every year on the anniversary of passing the bar. She called me on Sunday evenings and asked questions about my work that were specific and interested and genuine. She was the only person in my family who understood what I did and why I had chosen it. I chose estate law because of what I watched happen to Eleanor's own mother. A woman who had spent 60 years building something small and real, and who had died before she could protect it properly, and whose children had divided it badly and bitterly, and in ways that could not be undone. I had been 11 years old. I had watched my grandmother stand in a lawyer's office and hold her composure while her siblings argued over furniture. I had decided then, with the particular clarity that children sometimes arrive at before the world teaches them to doubt themselves, that I would learn how to prevent that. I became an estate attorney. I protected other people's grandmothers. It did not occur to me until very recently that my own grandmother might need protecting too. Eleanor's house was a craftsman on a quiet street in the older part of the city. She had lived there for 41 years. It had her garden in the backyard, roses she had planted herself, a small vegetable bed she maintained until the last spring. The kitchen had a window that faced east, and she made her coffee in that light every morning, and I had sat at that table more times than I could count. My mother had wanted that house for years, not for love of it, for what it represented: ownership, position, the right to say, "This is mine." Diane had grown up in that house and left it, and spent the rest of her life feeling vaguely owed a return. Eleanor knew this. She knew it the way she knew most things, quietly, completely, without announcing her knowledge. 3 years before she died, she made a phone call. Not to me, not to her children. To Arthur Wynne, a man she had known for 40 years, who had done her taxes and drafted her first will, and who understood, without needing to be told, that the situation required precision. She didn't tell me any of this while she was alive. I think she was afraid that if I knew, I would try to warn the family, and that would require a conversation she had no interest in having. Eleanor preferred to let things unfold at the correct moment. The correct moment, it turned out, was the one I was sleeping through. The voicemail was 43 seconds long. The voice was calm, older, American, with the faint texture of someone who had grown up somewhere southern and spent decades smoothing it out. "Miss Callahan, my name is Margaret Osei. I recently purchased a property on Weller Street from members of your family. I was a close friend of your grandmother Eleanor for many years. I believe we need to speak before you take any further steps regarding the estate. Please call me when you're able. I'll be available at any hour." I played it twice. Then I called her back. She answered on the second ring, as though she had been waiting. "Miss Callahan," she said. "Thank you for calling. How are you feeling?" The question surprised me. "You know I was in the hospital." "Eleanor told me to watch for the family moving quickly," she said. "When I didn't hear from you during the sale, I assumed something had happened. I'm glad you're all right." I sat with that for a moment. Outside my hospital window, the gray October sky had deepened to the color of slate. "You bought my grandmother's house," I said. "I did, at below market value." "Yes." A pause. "That was intentional. I had been an estate attorney for 11 years. I had learned to recognize the particular quality of silence that comes before someone says something that will change the shape of a conversation. Margaret Osei had that silence. "Miss Callahan," she said, "I did not buy that house from your family. I bought it with your family's signatures on a document that may not have been theirs to sign. The distinction matters." I closed my eyes. "Eleanor called me 2 months before she died," Margaret said. "She told me that if a sale was ever attempted on that property, I should be the buyer. She told me the price. She told me to call you as soon as the papers were signed." Another pause. "She also told me to tell you, the roses in the back garden still need to be cut back before winter." My throat tightened in a way I had not anticipated. Eleanor had known. She had known exactly what her family would do, and she had placed the right person in exactly the right position to intercept it. She had turned my family's greed into the mechanism of its own undoing. "There's an attorney," I said. It wasn't quite a question. "Arthur Wynne," Margaret said. "He's been waiting to hear from you." I looked at my IV line. I looked at the machine making its steady sound. I thought about my grandmother making coffee in the east-facing kitchen window, alone in her house in the early morning, thinking all of this through with the patience of someone who had no intention of leaving anything to chance. "Can you give me his number?" I said. I was discharged on Thursday. I drove directly to Arthur Wynne's office, which was in a building that smelled like old wood and paper, the particular smell of a practice that had been in the same location for decades and had no intention of moving. His assistant, a woman who introduced herself only as May, brought me tea without asking whether I wanted any. Arthur Wynne was 71 years old and looked like someone who had spent a lifetime knowing things he couldn't say yet. He shook my hand with both of his and held it for a moment before letting go. "You look like your grandmother," he said. "Around the eyes." I sat down across from his desk. He opened a folder. Inside was a document that was 41 pages long, tabbed and organized with the precision of someone who had done this work for a very long time. "Your grandmother established a revocable living trust 3 years ago," he said. "She transferred the Weller Street property into the trust at that time. She also transferred her savings account, her investment portfolio, and a parcel of land she owned in Dunmore County." He paused. "The total value as of her death is approximately $1.4 million. The room was very quiet. "The trust names a single beneficiary," Arthur said. He looked at me over his glasses. "You." I had drafted trusts like this myself. I had explained them to clients, filed them, defended them. I knew exactly what it meant. A property held in trust is not part of the probate estate. It cannot be sold by heirs. It passes directly to the named beneficiary upon the grantor's death, outside the reach of family disagreements, outside the reach of anyone who might move quickly while someone else is in surgery. My family had sold a house they did not own. The buyer had known this. The buyer had bought it anyway, with Eleanor's full knowledge and planning, specifically so the sale could be unwound cleanly. "The sale to Miss Osei," I said. "Is voidable," Arthur said. "Miss Osei is aware. She has already signed a document agreeing to deed the property back to the trust upon your request. She paid a nominal amount, specifically, to keep the transaction simple to reverse." I looked down at the folder in my lap. My hands were completely still. "There is also a letter," Arthur said. He slid an envelope across the desk. My name was on it in Eleanor's handwriting, the careful, upright script she had used my entire life. "She asked me to give you this privately before anything else happens." I did not open it yet. I held it in both hands and felt the weight of it. "My mother signed the sale documents," I said. "Yes, along with your Uncle Robert. They'll say they didn't know about the trust." "They may say that," Arthur said carefully. "Whether it's true is a separate question. Whether it matters legally is another one." He looked at me steadily. "You know the answer to both of those questions better than I do." I did know. The existence of the trust was a matter of public record. It had been filed with the county 3 years ago. Anyone conducting basic due diligence on a property sale, which any responsible party is required to do, would have found it within an hour. My mother was not a lawyer, but my mother had sold enough properties over the years to know that a title search was standard. Either she hadn't done one, which was negligent, or she had and proceeded anyway, which was something else. I put Eleanor's letter in my bag. I thanked Arthur Wynne. I drove home slowly, through streets that were losing their leaves, and I sat in my car in the parking garage for a long time before I went inside. I did not call my mother. I did not call Kevin. I did not call anyone. I had learned something very important from my grandmother. When you already know how something ends, there is no reason to rush the beginning. I took 4 days. I needed them partly because I was still recovering, and partly because the work required careful attention. I pulled the county records myself and confirmed the trust filing. I reviewed the sale documents Arthur had provided and identified 3 procedural issues that a competent title company should have flagged. I requested the title search report and found what I had expected to find. It had not been completed before closing. On the second day, Margaret Osei came to my apartment. She was tall, immaculate, and had the particular stillness of someone who has spent decades in rooms where decisions are made and has learned not to fill silence unnecessarily. She brought coffee in paper cups from a shop downstairs and sat across from me at my kitchen table. "Eleanor talked about you often," she said. "She said you were the one who would know what to do." "She didn't tell me any of this while she was alive," I said. "It came out more plaintive than I intended." Margaret smiled. "She said you would say that too." She wrapped her hands around her cup. "She also said that if she had told you, you would have tried to warn your family. And that would have started a conversation that would have cost you energy you'd need later." Eleanor had been right. I would have warned them. I would have sat my mother down and explained the trust and given her the opportunity to do the right thing. And my mother would have found a way around it, or found a way to make me feel guilty for bringing it up, and the whole thing would have been worse. Instead, Eleanor had let them do what they were always going to do, and built a door they didn't know existed. On the third day, I opened her letter. I am not going to reproduce all of it here. Some of it is mine alone. Things she said about watching me grow up, about the Sunday phone calls, about the particular pride she felt when I passed the bar. Things I will keep for a long time. But there is one part I will share, because it is the part that made me understand finally and completely what she had done and why. She wrote, "I am not leaving you this house because your mother and your uncle don't deserve it. I am leaving it to you, because you are the only one who will know what to do with it, not with the money. With the meaning. Some things should not be divided. Some things should be passed whole to the person who will hold them whole. You have always held things whole, Nora, even when no one was watching." I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. On the 4th day, Kevin sent a group text saying that the family was meeting at Robert's house on Saturday to divide the proceeds from the sale. He included an amount. He did not include my name in the message. I was added as an afterthought, with a line that said, "Nora, you should come too, I guess." I replied with 2 words, "I'll be there." I called Arthur Wynne and told him to come with me. Robert's house was in a suburb 40 minutes from the city. It was a large house for 2 people, which had always told me something about Robert that he probably didn't intend it to. He had done well enough in commercial real estate, not brilliantly, but consistently, and Patricia had spent 30 years decorating their home in a way that announced success rather than achieved it. I arrived at 2 in the afternoon. Arthur Wynne parked behind me. We walked to the door together. Patricia answered. She looked at me, then at Arthur, with the rapid calculation of a woman who has learned to assess social situations for threats. "Nora." She kissed the air beside my cheek. "We weren't sure you'd make it. How are you feeling?" "Better," I said. "This is Arthur Wynne. He was my grandmother's attorney." A pause. Not long, a fraction of a second. But I had been trained to read the pauses in rooms. "Of course," Patricia said, smiling. "Come in." The living room had been arranged around a large coffee table on which sat a banker's envelope and several printed spreadsheets. My mother was on the sofa. Robert was standing by the window. Kevin was in the armchair that had clearly been designated as his by the glass of whiskey beside it. My mother stood when she saw me. She came forward and hugged me with the particular warmth she deployed when she wanted to establish emotional credit before a difficult conversation. "Nora, sweetheart, you should be resting." "I'm fine, Mom." She looked at Arthur. "And who is this?" "Arthur Wynne. He was Grand's attorney for 40 years. The room changed. Not dramatically, no one spoke, no one moved. But the quality of attention shifted the way it shifts in a space when everyone in it suddenly understands that the meeting they thought they were having is not the meeting that is actually happening. Robert set his drink down. "We're just here to settle the distribution," he said. His voice had the careful casualness of someone buying time. "I know," I said. I sat down. Arthur sat beside me. "I'd like to hear the plan." My mother looked at Kevin. Kevin looked at his whiskey. Patricia sat very straight in her chair. Robert cleared his throat. "The house sold for $340,000. After the realtor fees and a few closing costs, we have just over $310. We thought an equal four-way split made sense. You, Kevin, your mother, and me." I nodded. I said nothing. "That's about $77,000 each," Patricia added, helpfully. I looked at the spreadsheet. I looked at the banker's envelope. I looked at my mother, who was watching me with an expression I knew well, the one she wore when she was trying to determine how much I knew. I turned to Arthur. "Do you want to start?" I said. "Or should I?" Arthur Wynne opened his briefcase. With the unhurried precision of a man who has done this kind of thing many times and has learned that speed is not the point. He placed a document on the coffee table. Then another. Then a third. 3 years ago, he said in a voice that was conversational and completely calm, Eleanor Callahan established a revocable living trust. She transferred the Weller Street property into that trust at that time. This is the trust instrument, filed with the county on October 14th, 3 years ago. It is a matter of public record. Patricia made a sound. My mother's face had gone very still. "A property held in trust," Arthur continued, "is not part of the probate estate. It does not pass through a will. It passes directly to the named beneficiary upon the grantor's death. This is the title record, showing the transfer of the property into the trust." Robert said we didn't know about any trust. "The filing is public," Arthur said. He did not say it unkindly. A standard title search, which is required before any property transaction, would have revealed it within the first hour of research. Kevin's whiskey glass was very still in his hand. "The sale to Miss O'Say was conducted on a property your family did not legally own. The trust had not been dissolved. The property had not been transferred back to Eleanor personally. The sale is voidable." "Voidable," my mother said. The word came out carefully, like she was testing its weight. "It can be unwound," I said. "Miss O'Say purchased the property with the understanding that she would deed it back to the trust upon request. She has already signed the agreement to do so." The room was very quiet. Patricia said, "This can't be right." "It is right," I said. I said it gently. "You sold a house you didn't own. The money from the sale will need to be returned to Miss O'Say." My mother turned to me. Her expression had moved through several things: shock, calculation, something that might have been shame, and had arrived at something I recognized as her default position: the attempt to make me responsible for her feelings. "Nora," she said, "if you had told us—" "I didn't know," I said. "I was in surgery." "If Eleanor had told us—" "She chose not to," I said. That was her right. A long silence. I reached into my bag and took out the envelope. Eleanor's handwriting on the front. My name. "She left a letter," I said. "Arthur has the official trust documents. This is personal. I'd like to read part of it." No one spoke. I opened the envelope. I found the paragraph. My voice was steady. "I am not angry at your mother or your uncle. I want you to know that. Anger is too expensive at my age, and I have spent it on things that mattered more. What I feel is something closer to clarity. I have watched this family my whole life, and I have loved it fully, and I have also seen it clearly. There is a difference between those things. You can love something clearly." I am leaving you what I have built, because you are the one who will understand what it cost, and because you are the one who will know that some things are not meant to be divided, they are meant to be kept. I folded the letter. Kevin had put his glass down. He was looking at the floor. My mother had both hands pressed flat against her knees, which was what she did when she was trying to hold herself together in public. Robert said nothing. Patricia said nothing. Outside, the October afternoon was cooling. Leaves were coming off the oak tree in Robert's backyard in ones and twos, unhurried. The trust also includes Eleanor's savings account and an investment portfolio, and a parcel of land in Dunmore County. The total estate transferred directly to Miss C. Callahan, as named beneficiary, is approximately $1.4 million. Patricia made a sharp sound and pressed her hand over her mouth. Robert sat down heavily in the chair nearest him. My mother looked at me for a long time. Her eyes were full, not with tears exactly, but with something adjacent to them, something that in another version of this story might have been the beginning of an apology. "She always loved you best," my mother said. It came out quieter than she intended, less accusation than admission. "She loved us all," I said. "She just knew us differently." I did not move back into the house right away. I let November pass first. I needed the time, and the house needed it too, to be something I chose rather than something that had simply landed on me. Eleanor would have understood that. Margaret Ose deeded the property back to the trust within 2 weeks. She came to the signing herself, which she didn't need to do, and afterward we sat in the east-facing kitchen and drank coffee, and she told me stories about my grandmother that I hadn't heard before. Eleanor at 40, fierce and funny. Eleanor at 60, quieter but sharper. I listened for a long time. The money from the sale was returned to Margaret. My family did not contest the trust. I had expected them to, had prepared for it, had stayed late 3 nights in a row building a case that turned out not to be necessary. Robert called me once, a week after the meeting. He said he was sorry. It was a short call, and I believed some of it, and that was enough for now. My mother didn't call for 2 weeks. When she did, she didn't apologize directly. She asked about the house and whether I planned to sell it, and I said no. She was quiet for a moment. Then she asked if she could visit sometime. I said yes. I meant it. Kevin sent a text that said only, "I didn't know about the trust. For what it's worth, I believed him. Kevin's problem had never been malice." It was a particular kind of incuriosity about consequences that had followed him his whole life and would probably continue to. I moved in on the first Saturday in December. The roses in the back garden had not been cut back before winter. I had forgotten, and there had been a frost, and some of the canes were damaged, but not all of them. I spent a Saturday afternoon out there with pruning shears I found in the shed, working through each plant the way Eleanor had shown me years ago when I was young enough to learn things from watching. My hands got cold. I didn't go inside. There is a particular kind of grief that comes not from losing someone but from understanding, only after they are gone, how carefully they were watching over you. Eleanor had spent 3 years building a structure designed to protect something she couldn't protect in person anymore. She had done it quietly, without telling me, because she trusted me to be capable of handling what she left behind. I am an estate attorney. I have spent my career building exactly this kind of structure for other people's families. I had never built one for myself, because I had never believed I had something worth protecting. Eleanor knew differently. Eleanor had always known differently. Arthur Wynne came for dinner in January. We ate at the kitchen table by the east window, which is the right place to eat in that house, and he told me that Eleanor had been very specific about the timing of everything. She said you needed to find it yourself, he told me. She said if you knew ahead of time, you'd spend the whole thing managing everyone else's feelings instead of your own. I laughed. It surprised me. That sounds right, I said. He smiled. She also said you made the best coffee of anyone she knew. She wanted me to verify that. I got up and made another pot. The house is mine now. The roses will come back in spring. The east window still gets the morning light. And somewhere in the careful structure of what Eleanor built in the documents filed quietly 3 years ago in the phone call to Margaret, in the letter she wrote the night before she died, I can hear her voice, patient and precise and completely certain. I knew you'd know what to do. She didn't leave me a house. She left me proof that someone had been paying attention all along.